Hi there from Chicago. Glad to have you with us here on Big Ten today. Mike Hall and Big Daddy Meach. We got tons to look forward to. A couple of big guests coming your way. And we just found out about an hour or so ago an important player on a Big Ten men's hoops team is done for the year. We'll get to all that in just a little bit. But hello, Trent.
Hey, Mike.
Nice to see you.
It's great to be here.
You ready to talk some hoops?
I am ready. I am ready to go.
Well, ready or not, we're doing it for the next hour. Let's get right away to our big story, and that is looking back at what happened yesterday. There were two games to get to. One of them was Iowa taking down Michigan State in East Lansing. Peyton Sandfort led the way with 22 points. Ben Krikke was early season Ben Krikke. 18 points, a season high 14 rebounds. They took care of the ball incredibly well. Didn't shoot a bunch of threes and didn't have to. They get the win, and kind of big picture about this win, this is back-to-back impressive outings for Iowa. The previous game they took down Wisconsin. Now they win in East Lansing against a tournament team in Michigan State. Things are starting to look pretty good for Iowa.
And for better or worse, they got some tougher opponents coming up. They play Illinois twice in their last 4 games. I believe they go at Northwestern too. So some tough games for Iowa, but man, they're playing well. They're a fun team to watch. I thought the critical thing last night game, Michigan State was up by 3 with about 6.5 minutes left in that first half. Iowa went on a 21-6 run to close out that half. Mike, you mentioned Sandfort, Krikke, McCaffrey. All 3 of those guys had double digits in the first half. Scored at 1.5 points per possession. They were just playing exactly how they like to play. Out in space, in flow. The ball was moving. They were getting whatever they wanted going to the basket. This Iowa team, it's not so much about shooting threes, especially aside from the Sandfort brothers. But their off-ball movement, driving to the basket. Krikke was fantastic. Owen Freeman, 8 points in 8 minutes. So when he played, when he wasn't out of foul trouble, he was effective. But I love watching them play. The ball moves. There's great spacing. Multiple guys were involved, and especially that first half, that's exactly how Fran McCaffrey likes playing.
What does it say to you when you consider teams want to start peaking at the right time? They want to play their most mature ball, that on the road you lose only 6 turnovers against an athletic Michigan State team?
Well, this is an experienced group, and that's what you want. And Iowa traditionally has not turned the ball over. That's always, though, big, especially at this time of year. They did a great job of taking care of the ball, taking quality looks. And I think what plays in Iowa's favor is they do tend to shoot the ball pretty quickly, so they can shoot it oftentimes before they can turn the ball over. But
that's part of the strategy. Rather get a shot off that isn't great than not get a shot at all.
And what I love about Coach McCaffrey, he lets them go. He lets them play. He gives their freshmen a leash to play and at least gives them opportunities. I thought Dembele, there in the first half, gave them some great minutes when Freeman was out in foul trouble. So offensively, they were prime Iowa basketball, especially in that first half. But I also thought on the other side of the floor, Mike, defensively, this is a team they'll change up their defenses on Sunday, predominantly man-to-man in that win over Wisconsin. Last night, a lot of zone defenses. Sometimes I'm not quite sure what they're doing. They might start out in what looks like a 1-3-1. They go to a 2-3. It's a 3-2. They have multiple defenses that they threw at Michigan State. It made Michigan State a more perimeter-oriented team, and while they shot it well, were like 10 for 20 from 3 on the night, that's great.
Yeah.
They didn't get much to the basket, and I thought Iowa just did a fantastic job of protecting the paint and both ends of the floor. They played great. They're rolling now.
So 3 games ago, they lose to Maryland, and the players decide to have a players-only meeting, and the veterans, Perkins, et cetera, all spoke up in there. And the main theme from the Iowa players-only meeting was they have to be more assertive. Tony Perkins said, we've been getting bullied. It's time that we start doing the bullying. And they said they need to have better and more consistent communication with one another. And now they've got back-to-back really impressive wins. Have you been in one of those player-only meetings before? Because it's one of those things I've never been a part of, certainly not at a high level. I just feel like it feels like it works very frequently. It makes an immediate impact on the team's performance.
Well, a players-only meeting, it's the guys are taking ownership. This isn't about the coach. This is, doing his thing. This is about the players. And whenever players take ownership, it carries more weight. Whenever a player challenges a teammate and speaks up, a lot of guys aren't comfortable doing that. I wasn't comfortable doing that the first couple years of my career. And Iowa has some veteran leaders. I think especially Tony Perkins and Peyton Sandfort. From what I watched from afar, it just looks their body language, how they carry themselves, the voice that they have on the court, the spirit that they play with. I think they have fantastic leadership. Right. They're trending in the right direction. They got some tough games to come, but I like where they're headed. And, Mike, I'm glad you mentioned that because I think the leadership throughout a long season of ups and downs, it feels like Iowa's rounding into form, and they're a tough opponent right now.
And we've seen they can have great success in the Big Ten tournament a couple of years ago.
That's right.
Winning the whole thing. I'm trying to think bigger picture, too, is the NCAA tournament discussion. If you're trying to think of what are their best 2 wins of the season, it's probably their last 2 games. That's a couple quad 1 victories for them.
Their last 2, that's huge for them, and they got some more opportunities. So
right.
It's not going to be easy. Illinois playing as well as anybody, going to Northwestern, that's not an easy game. So they have what they want, though, right? If you're on the wrong side of the bubble now, you want those opportunities against great opponents, quad 1 opponents. Iowa has that, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how they finish off this conference season.
2 quad 1 wins in a 4-day span.
It's huge.
And their schedule, like you said, Illinois on the road Sunday, then Penn State at home at Northwestern, then Illinois for a second time at home. You go 3-1 in that span.
Oh, you're feeling great if you go 3-1.
Really good going into the Big Ten tournament, right?
For sure,
yeah.
For sure.
Meanwhile, Michigan State, not a bad loss by any means, but now they've fallen down to 5th place in the Big Ten standings. They obviously want to get into that top 4 so they can have a double bye in the Big Ten tournament.
What's disappointing is when you're at home, you have an experienced team, and you feel like it didn't feel like they dictated the terms of the game at all. I thought Iowa controlled that game, and that's how Michigan State, their defense has been better until last night. They weren't able to get out and transition like they wanted to. They were playing from behind. I felt like they were on their heels, gave up way too many easy baskets on the defensive end. And then I think what's always key for them is Hull and Hogard, okay? They turned it around in the second half, but it was too little too late in the first half. Only 5 points between Malik Hull and A.J. Hogard. Finally, I think for Michigan State, take a page out of Iowa's book. Okay, both these teams like to play fast. But for Michigan State, it just feels like if they don't get an easy run out, layup, dunk, or 3, they set it up, they run a set, and it's just too methodical. Iowa might not get up and down the court as fast, but they're right into their motion, their random basketball, spacing, drive, and kick. And I think Michigan State, with those guards and with that experience, they could play with a bit more pace in a secondary break, even if they don't get a quick transition bucket.
Yeah, you think of those missed layups Hogard had in the first half.
Those
Few
come
of
back
those
to bite
go
you,
in.
yeah.
You're not down 12 at half. You're down 6 or something like that. It's a very different ball game for sure. The other game was Wisconsin taking on Maryland. Badgers get the win 74-70. Now Wisconsin is in 3rd place. They've had a rough stretch the last couple weeks, but they needed to not lose this close game against Maryland. And they needed to make some clutch free throws late in the game. They did basically every single time they had to.
Yeah, what I liked about Wisconsin is their balance. 4 guys in double figures, a couple others 8-9 points there. I thought Tyler Wall, 18-6, was really good, really effective around the basket. Max Klesman, who's been struggling, played well, hit a huge late 3, and then knocked down those free throws, Mike, to close out the game. So the balance, I really like those. Still, though, for Wisconsin, I think they need to play better if they want to get to where they need to go. 6 assists to 12 turnovers. That's not going to get it done. Still not shooting the ball that well, 4 for 17 from threes. They were better on the defensive end. I know Maryland's not a juggernaut on that side of the floor by any measure, but I thought they were much better. Maryland made some shots late that got them up to 70 points, but for the most part, I thought Wisconsin did a very good job defensively, especially on Jameer Young, who's maybe the best scoring point guard in the country. And I thought they had multiple guys. Chucky Hepburn, John Blackwell is a freshman. It's great to see him back. I know he was banged up a little bit. Max Klesman. Those 3 did a great job on Young.
What is the difference with good and not so good Wisconsin? I mentioned before this when they'd lost 5 of the last 6, and before that they were a borderline top 10 team in the country. What do you notice is different when they're playing well versus not?
I thought it was interesting last night on the big show. My old coach, Coach Weber, a defensive guy, he admitted. He said offensively he thinks they can be better, getting out in transition. And I just think they're too stagnant at times. 6 assists on the night. I know they scored 78 points, but that's not – I think they need to be better. I want to see the ball movement. I want to see player movement. I want to see it quicker decisions down the stretch especially. It seemed like they were just trying to milk the clock where you got to play basketball. I want to still see them playing with purpose, not just running a set, but playing with purpose, driving to the basket with some conviction. I love when A.J. Storr's doing that. I love when Chucky Hepburn's more aggressive. So that's what I want to see from them, more pace, more purpose with their play offensively.
A.J. Storr gave one of the highlights of the season.
He did.
With that dunk. I mean, he did just what you said. You needed him to drive the lane. He drove the lane and made people get out of his way.
That's another thing. I think they have that ability in transition, which we saw a bit more in non-conference early in January that they haven't been able to get in transition as much more, get those easy buckets. A.J. Storr, he could be like a Terrence Shannon in transition. I think they could look for more opportunities to be aggressive in the open court.
All right, let me ask you about the least sexy thing to talk about on TV. Free throws, baby. They were awesome. I know Maryland had to foul because they were behind and they needed to extend the game, but geez, in the final 42 seconds, Wisconsin was 11 of 12 from the free throw line.
And I believe Max Klesmit hit 6 of those or so at least. So that's oftentimes the difference in winning and losing games. Maryland did not shoot it poor from the free throw line, but they were 17 for 23 versus 28 for 31. So
28 for 31 on the game.
You know, that wins you games. So I know it's not sexy, Mike, but it's so important. And Wisconsin, it seems like year in, year out, they have good free throw shooting teams. You got to close it out. They did that. Haven't been playing well, but give them credit. Did enough things to get the job done. And when Maryland was making some shots, they really challenged in those last minute and a half trying to extend the game. But Wisconsin never really gave them the opportunity to actually tie it up because they were making those free throws.
Right. Yeah, the most made free throws for the Badgers in 8 years, 28 makes in the game. And you mentioned the upcoming schedule for Iowa. Here's what Wisconsin still has: Illinois and Purdue on their schedule. In their final 4 games, they play the 2 teams that are still ahead of them in conference standing. So if they want to get real momentum heading into the Big Ten tournament, the opportunity is there. I mentioned at the top of the show there was some bad news for a Big Ten team, and that is for, unfortunately, the last place team in the Big Ten, Michigan. Olivier Kamwa is done for the rest of the season. He has to have surgery on his left wrist. He was a grad senior this year, transferred in from Tennessee, was almost immediately named a team captain on this squad, started 26 games, 14 points a contest, plus he was a great rebounder. He's going to have to take 3 to 4 months of a recovery in this one, and this was a team that really didn't need any more bad news.
It's a tough blow for a team that's had a number of unfortunate things this year. You wish him the best. I think he's got a great pro career ahead of him somewhere, someplace, Finnish national guy. So you wish the best for Kamwa. Looking ahead for Michigan, I look at a guy like Will Cheddar. It's time for him to step up. Just a sophomore, shown flashes, had 11 points, made a couple threes in that win over Wisconsin recently. They still have a big guy in Terrace Reed they can play through. Terrence Williams has had a very solid season, but they're one of their best players down. Doug McDaniel, is he back now for every game? If not yet, he will be soon. I'd like to see him and Jalen Llewellyn maybe play together more, home or road. That hasn't been the case as much so far. They still have some talent. It's a big blow. We'll see if some guys like Cheddar can maybe step up as they finish off this year.
A team that's been struggling most of the season now has to go forward with the final couple weeks of the regular season and then the Big Ten tournament without their second leading scorer and their second leading rebounder. Let's take a look at the Scarlet Knights. The first 20 games of the season, something was missing, right? They were just 10-10 overall, had a hard time scoring inside. A lot of their stats that they wanted to be good just weren't. The last 5 games, they've gone 4-1. Their points per game is up. Their paint points are up. Really, every detail is up. So what's been the difference? Our big interview has been the difference. Jeremiah Williams joined the team officially 5 days ago, and now he is joining us to talk about it. Jeremiah, it's great to have you with us here. We know your story. You know your story as good as anybody. You had to wait 700 days between playing an actual game of basketball. What was the hardest part about that?
The hardest part about it was probably, just being patient and getting through the injury. Ultimately, 700 days was the longest I've ever been playing basketball that I can remember. So, getting through all the rehab, being patient, that was probably the hardest part.
What was the first game back like? Did you feel rusty? Did you feel anxious? Did you feel nervous?
Yeah, I was actually pretty calm for our first game. We played at Michigan, was my first game, and I was supposed to be cleared, or we thought I was going to get the chance to play the game before that. We played at home at Penn State, so I was more nervous for the game that I didn't play than the game I was able to play.
That makes sense. Did it take a couple minutes for you to feel the rhythm, or you were like, oh, yeah, no, I'm good, I got this?
Oh, yeah, no, it probably took about a half or so for me to feel the rhythm for sure. Definitely got in there, was a little rusty, but just kept chipping away.
You know, I got to call the last game you played, and in talking with your head coach beforehand, he brought up multiple times how great of a talker you are on the court and off the court. When and where did that start for you?
Yeah, from a young age. I mean, my mom always talks about how parent-teacher conferences, I would have to be moved around the class, just talking too much and making too many friends. So I think, you know, it just started from me being young.
Do you notice it in a game? And the reason I asked is in that last game, there was at one point where there was like, you made a pass that went awry or something, you shook your head and you walked right past me and you said, come on, Jay, come on, Jay, come on, Jay, as you went to get to the ball. And I was like, oh, that's what Pikel's talking about. Do you notice it mid-game?
Yeah, I mean, it's just something that's been a part of, you know, my game since day one, you know, just talking to myself, talking to my guys, and, you know, communication is very important in anything. So, you know, it's just something I take pride in.
What do your teammates say about your ability to communicate on the court?
I think they appreciate it. You know, we're all able to help each other on the court. You know, we get to our huddles. You know, we have conversations about what we need to do, what needs to be done on the offense and defensive end. So, I think it just helps everyone.
Let's talk about some of your skills. Personally, in the few games you've played, I have loved watching you do the Euro step. I feel like you've got a lot of confidence using that as you're driving the lane. What do you feel about it?
Yeah, you know, a lot of, you know, my basic skills have just stemmed from, you know, just me playing and, you know, outside on the basketball court with my friends, or, you know, and, you know, the Euro step is a big common move. So, you know, I've been doing it for a long time, you know, very confident in it, and, you know, it's a go-to move.
I mentioned the game Sunday against Minnesota. You guys were tied at the half. You ended up losing the game. What could you as a team take away from that? What's something you learned from that loss?
Yeah, that game was, you know, credit to Minnesota and their defense and their game plan, but, you know, I think for us it was just a low energy game, and, you know, we know that we have to bring the energy, and our defense needs to travel with us. So, you know, that was just, you know, a game that I think got away from us, and I think that as long as we, you know, we correct it and we bring our energy and our defense every game, we'll be fine.
You know, you did make a heavy push, though, as a team late. At one point, you scored 11 unanswered points in a 99-second span. And I remember looking around being like, whoa, this team woke up. What do you remember from just that section of the game? Yeah,
I'm pretty sure that was towards the end of the game. And
yep.
I mean, that was just the end of the game push that we had in us. I know, you know, we wanted to win that game pretty bad. We know we didn't bring it the whole 40 minutes, but, you know, that just shows the type of team we are, you know, what we're capable of.
Your team really has been rejuvenated since you joined the lineup, to the point that you're in that discussion now of NCAA tournament bubble teams. Not that you're in, but that you're one of the teams that can be talked about it and has a chance to win your way into the big dance. How do you as a team talk about that aspect specifically?
Yeah, we're definitely taking the one game at a time approach. I mean, there's no other way to look at it. I mean, if we can't look too far ahead, we can't look too far back. I mean, one game at a time. I think that, you know, that helped us get in our 4-game winning streak, and, you know, it's just time to start another streak.
Why did you choose Rutgers?
Yeah, ultimately, you know, calling around most of the guys that I know on the East Coast that is pretty knowledgeable about the game. They all talked about Coach Pikel's character. You know, a lot of people talk about X's and O's, defense, offense, or whatever it is, but a lot of people just told me Coach Pike is a great guy, and I think, you know, I took to that. I've been to a couple schools, and, you know, that was just something I really valued. And then also, you know, the style that Rutgers plays, I think I'm a Rutgers guy, Rutgers defense, you know, and when I took my visit, I really, you know, liked it here and saw myself here.
Tell me something I don't know about Steve Pikel.
He hates phones. He hates the phones. He always tells us, put the phones away. He says he's gonna, you know, that's something he wants to, you know, keep going at Rutgers. If he could throw the phones away, he would.
You know, he told me he thinks one of the reasons you stand out so much is because this generation is so used to texting each other, and that you have this great skill set of being able to old school communicate with people in a way that a lot of people your age don't have.
Yeah, that sounds like a Coach Pikel quote for sure.
You went to a really prestigious basketball school in high school. Chicago's Simeon is a real deal place where a lot of great players have played. What was that like for you?
You know, it was a great experience. I mean, I only went there for my senior year, but in such short time we were able to win the city championship, and then also with the players that came through there, you know, Taylor Horton-Tucker, Zach Norvell, Derrick Rose, Jabari Parker, you know, Kendrick Nunn, like the list goes on, but those guys come back, you know, and they're a part of the program. You know, Simeon Nation is it's like a family, a brotherhood, and it was a unique experience to be a part of. I mean, it's the best program in Chicago, and it has such a rich history. I was blessed to be a part of it.
Up next is a game against the number 3 team in the country, the Purdue Boilermakers. What's the game plan against them?
Play hard, bring our defense, and bring energy. I mean, in the 4 games that we were able to win, whenever we did that, and you know, I think we got the result we wanted. So when we bring that and we do it to a high level, I think we can beat anyone.
Jeremiah Williams, congratulations on the great start to your tenure as a Scarlet Knight. We appreciate you giving us some of your time.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Alec and the Nebraska Cornhuskers. And by the way, I'm sure you've noticed by now, it's a much better season for Nebraska. Their arrow has been pointing up for about 13 months in a row now, dating back to the beginning of February last year. They are one of the 3 teams that have a really noticeable difference in winning percentage from last year to this year. And that got us thinking, how much of that credit goes to Coach of the Year? We still got a few weeks left, but I'm going to throw out some names there, and you tell me your thoughts on Coach of the Year possibilities for them. Let's start with Alex head coach Fred Hoiberg. It has been a really good season for Nebraska compared to last year.
Coach Hoiberg's got a great case for it at 18-8, 8-7 in the conference. Maybe the most dominant win I've seen all year across college basketball, and how they just dominated and demolished Purdue at home last month. Just got had a big win against Wisconsin at home. So some massive wins. I love that they've stuck with Coach Hoiberg. And specifically, Mike, what I think makes him such a great coach, look, he's had success as a player at the highest level. He's coached in the NBA at the highest level. He's coached at his alma mater, been successful. And it just seems like from the sidelines, he has a poise and a perspective that's just really healthy for the game. Right. And I think for his players, it allows him to play free, play loose. He's a great offensive mind. I love how they space the floor, how they move the ball, their cutting action. It's a beautiful brand to watch. I enjoy Nebraska, but just he's a great coach, and you love to see it paying off. They stuck with him. He's got his team playing his brand of basketball, and he's got to be one of the finalists this season. 2 wins away from a 20-win season. I think that word used is great. He has perspective. You can tell he's been there before. Nothing's going to rattle him. He knows how to build up a program, and again, the arrow's pointing the right way. At the end of this segment, I want you to tell me how you would rank the Big Ten Coach of the Year candidates. But we know Hoiberg is going to get consideration. Do you give consideration to a guy whose team has been ranked in the top 3 nationally basically the entire year? You got to with what Matt Painter has done at Purdue. I thought last year Chris Collins was totally deserving of the Big Ten Coach of the Year. I thought Matt Painter could have been in that conversation, maybe a bit more. Just they've been the class of the Big Ten the last few seasons, and once again, that's where they are this year. And you love to see him do it. Especially developing talent. He doesn't care about, is this kid a 5-star, is this kid a no-star? He has a great eye for talent, so does his staff. He brings them in, he's developed them. Zach Edey is the perfect example. You also see a guy like Braden Smith. I don't think any other Big Ten team wanted a Braden Smith. I don't know if Missouri Valley teams did, and now he's turned him into an all-conference caliber player, maybe an All-American. So you love the development. He filled a critical piece with Lance Jones. So Coach Painter, he's built that culture. You know, he has that thing humming, and he's definitely for conference and national up there as Coach of the Year candidate.
Combine the transfers that he brought in and the sophomores who've improved from their freshman year, he deserves a lot of consideration for sure. Does Brad Underwood deserve some consideration for the improvement that the Orange and Blue have seen in Champaign?
No doubt. They're 10-4 in the conference. I think they're poised to move in the top 10, and he's done it a very different way from Matt Painter, relying a lot on transfers. He has recruited well. He's recruited nationally. He's been as good in the transfer portal as any coach in the country. And this year, he went with experience, bringing in Marcus Damask, bringing in Quincy Guerrier and Justin Harmon, obviously Terrence Shannon the year prior in the transfer portal. So he's built a great roster, and he's adapted how he's played. in recent years. From the hectic style of defensively they played when he first came to Champaign. Then he had Kofi Coburn. A lot was centered around him.
Yep.
And now a lot of isolation, kind of spacing the court. So he's changed how he's played. I love that. And then he has a great eye for talent and getting those pieces to play together.
Let's stay in state. Does Chris Collins have a legit shot at this?
There's no doubt. I mean, think about what he's had to deal with, too. You got a guy like Ty Berry going down. I even look at that game against Rutgers. Langberg's out. They're playing guys that haven't played all season, and they just fight. They play together. I think Northwestern is the most connected team in the league, maybe the toughest team in the league. They got shot makers. They got big playmakers. And Chris Collins, to do it again, obviously got to the NCAA tournament a few years ago, struggled for a couple years. Everybody thought, his time might be done in Evanston, to get back there that last year. And now they're right on the door this year with some massive wins, developed Boo Buie into an All-American. I love what he's done, and he's right there, too, at the top.
Let me throw a name out there. Let me try to pitch you on someone to see if he can make your top 5.
Okay.
Ben Johnson at Minnesota.
Oh, you don't have to pitch me.
Yeah?
This is probably the best turnaround
Totally agree.
in the Big Ten Conference. I mean, we called a game together last year of Minnesota's, and they were so inferior, their talent. And Ben Johnson,
they had no depth last year.
It was not there. And so you look, he's recruited well, bringing in a guy like Cam Christie, Pharrell Payne the year before. So he's recruited, transfers Dawson Garcia, Mike Mitchell, he's Elijah Hawkins. He's done well in that, then developing them. And then I think the biggest thing as a coach, you're a motivator. He's kept this group together. They got a big win to finish the year last year. Jameson Battle hit a big 3 to finish the year. He's out the door, but he brought some guys back. He developed them. He hit the transfer portal, and you feel like he's given it everything he's got to Minnesota, and it's starting to pay off. It'll be really interesting to see how they finish this year. They're right on the door, maybe NCAA tournament team.
You think of where they were last year, where you kind of felt they were out of it right when the season began because of all the issues they had to deal with, and now they're an outside chance at being in the tournament discussion, that he said he wants his guys to think of themselves as an NCAA tournament team. That's where the goal is right now. Compared to where it was last year, that's a wild turnaround for them.
It's really impressive, and I think that's the biggest thing, the belief. The coach has it, and he's trying to instill that into his team. They're right there. They got some depth, so I'm really looking forward to seeing how they finish off this year.
Again, they're not in that tournament discussion yet, but they're a couple wins away from absolutely being on one of those teams that Mike DeCourcy and company are going to be considering for the bubble. Give me your list right now. Who are the leading candidates? If there was a Big Ten Coach of the Year handed out today, it's going to...
I think how dominant Purdue is. I put Painter up top. I put Brad Underwood right there below him. I look at the top. Who are the best teams? I'd go to those two guys. Chris Collins has maybe done the most with nothing in terms of overachieving from a talent perspective, so he would be in the third spot. But I also would say Fred Hoiberg and Ben Johnson, the turnaround from last year's, I think those two coaches have maybe the most upside, if you will, to finish off this conference season. And if they could find them as NCAA caliber teams, I think both Hoiberg and Ben Johnson could be the Big Ten Coach of the Year this year.
I do like the idea that you have Painter high up there. I feel like sometimes we don't reward a coach because he has good players, but he brought those players in, and there should be some attention given to that.
Thanks, Mike.
You're allowed to have that opinion. That's the takeaway here.
How do you like that for momentum? Entry again. Bostic doing work. Now Cook trying to cash in. And just like that, a standing ovation from the crowd in Champaign.
Now, there's a reason for that standing ovation as we get to our big stat. Illinois took down top 15 ranked Indiana and did so by 20 points on Monday, which snapped a long losing streak against the Hoosiers, who've been such a good program for so long. Largest margin of victory for Illinois against a ranked team since the 1990s. Only 6 players played in this one, so a lot was on the shoulders of players like Genesis Bryant, who herself played all 40 minutes of that game. And adding on to that punishment, now she has to sit and talk to me. I mean, talk about brutal. Genesis is good enough to join us now from our studios in Champaign. Genesis, were you tired? I mean, that's a lot of action for one player to play.
I was actually tired, but after that game, we had an autograph signing. So it was maybe another 45 minutes where we were interacting with fans and signing things, taking pictures. So kind of had to put on for a little bit longer, but that was a long game for sure.
Yeah, but signing autographs doesn't get you as tired as running around and playing 40 minutes, right?
No. Especially when you're guarding Scalia off of 3 screens at one time, and she never stops moving. I mean, it was definitely a chase.
Well, let's talk about that game for a little bit. That's a really good team, and you beat them by a lot. What went so well for your team in that game?
I think we were so connected, and then offensively we got a groove, and we kept doing the punches. So when they would kind of go on their little run, a lot of times early in the season, we would kind of let teams come all the way back if we had a lead. But I feel like this time, like we said, no, let's come together, let's keep this lead up. And I feel like with us playing ahead most of the game, that really helped our confidence too.
Considering the entire season from November until now, what words do you use to describe what this year has been like?
Ooh, I would say a roller coaster. Like we've had a lot of ups and a lot of downs, but throughout the downs, I feel like we learned so much. And we got so close together, and you could kind of tell that on the court. I feel like our chemistry and our bond is way tighter now in February than it was in November and December. So like everything kind of added together, and it just feels really good now.
What feels different this year versus last year?
I would say we don't surprise anybody anymore. I feel like last year we surprised everybody, honestly. They didn't think we were going to be good at all. I feel like this year people knew who we were. I mean, we came into the season being ranked, so we already had a big target on our back, and we're getting everybody's A game now, and I feel like that's the level that we wanted to be at, so we're happy to be there now.
You know, that's a thing we talk about a lot in the media, the idea of hunter versus hunted, having the target on your back. You can actually feel that in a game. You can feel that someone is prepared for you differently this year than they would have been last year.
Oh, definitely. I mean, the way the team scout us, know our plays, I mean, we're calling the play, and the girl that's guarding me is telling me what I'm about to do. So just like, just those different things, it's like, oh man, they really did their homework. So you could definitely tell this year the difference.
Give me an example of a theme that your head coach, Shauna Green, has been talking to you as a team about. What is it she wants from you guys specifically in games?
Just doing things one way. And the little things matter so much, because a lot of times we think about the last 2 minutes of the game or like those final possessions, but it's really everything from the first quarter to that point that really matters and make a difference. And I feel like just having a one-way mentality where we're just doing things the right way and not trying to take shortcuts.
What about a specific thing? Is she trying to get better ball movement, more three-pointers per game, more points in the paint? What's something like that that she's working on with you guys?
I would say attacking the paint. I feel like a lot of times we settle for a lot of jumpers and jump shots at the beginning of the year. I feel like even Sunday, we proved that like if we attack the paint, we get downhill, we get to the free throw line, and just manufacture points from there. So I'll say attacking the paint.
How would you describe the confidence level of the team right now?
Man, we feel good right now. I mean, to have a 2-game winning streak against 2 top teams in the league, and to do 1 on the road and 1 back home, because we haven't really been that great at home this year. So to get that big rank win, I feel like that really boosts our confidence, and we're just looking forward to the rest of these games because we're playing all top of the league teams for the rest of the year.
You know, it's interesting. You mentioned at the beginning, one of the things you thought went well in that Indiana game was you got up early, and that was better for you guys mentally. This season, you guys didn't get up early, right? It wasn't like you started out with a 10-1 record. You kind of had to fight to get to this position where you are right now. How did you guys get it back?
Yeah, that's why we stayed the course and stayed together. I feel like a lot of teams, we could have been split and just went our different ways and adversity hit. I feel like we made a decision and a choice to say, look, y'all, like we know it hasn't gone how we want it to go, but we still got a lot of season left. And just live by the saying, like, it doesn't matter. It's not about how you start, but it's how you finish. So I feel like we're just trying to finish strong and just prove that we can do a lot of things still left in this season.
Let me talk to you about this Makira Cook character. 22 points in the win against Indiana. What is it like watching her when she's in a rhythm offensively?
Man, she makes our team go. I mean, Cook is a 3-level scorer, and she's such a good facilitator as well. So she knows how to make the right read when people are maybe double teaming her or crashing on her in the paint. And it's just a good time to just play off each other. I feel like we play really well when one maybe is tired of bringing the ball up or getting a little tired, the other one bring it up, and it just kind of keeps the load off of just one person being the point guard.
How long did it take for you guys to feel a rhythm with one another?
I feel like it kind of went up and down as the season went a little bit, just with matchups, and then she was out for a little bit, and I was out a little bit at the beginning of the season a little bit, but it was kind of like that in and out of kind of playing together with each other. And then the summer she was at USA, so all that time you kind of build bonding with each other. It took a little minute, but I feel like now we're kind of at a really good part in the season.
You guys are part of this weird group, right, who came in as COVID kids. And because of that, you have that possibility for a fifth year next year. When do you allow yourself to think about those options? What kind of timetable do you have for decisions like that?
Yeah, I just think just taking a day at a time and like definitely gonna have those conversations with Coach Green and the staff after the season. But as far as right now, like we're just locked in on one day at a time and just trying to be the best we can.
Okay. So just wait till the season's done before you start really thinking about it?
Yeah, to the season over.
Well, we're getting close. I mean, there's only, I think, 3 games left for you guys in the regular season before the Big Ten tournament. How would you describe the team's mindset right now?
Just trying to finish strong. I mean, we could do a lot of things still left. We still got a lot of great opportunities. I mean, who doesn't want the opportunity that we have on Sunday to play Iowa at home? Like, that's a great opportunity for us. And just showing people that we might not have started the best, but we are still a good team and we can still finish strong.
Well, since you took me there, yeah, Sunday it's Iowa in Iowa City. Now, if you remember last year, you guys beat the Hawkeyes in Champaign. What do you remember of that game last year?
It's kind of the same feel as Indiana. Like, we got the lead early, and I don't think we was ever down that whole game. Like, we kept the lead and maintained it, and I feel like we play our best when we're not trying to play catch-up. So I think that's going to be really key of having a good start on Sunday.
I don't know if you remember what you did in that game, but I do. 24 points, perfect 3 for 3 from behind the line. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that.
What was that game like for you?
I mean, well, a lot of people don't realize I was in foul trouble the first half. So I had only played just a little bit in the first half. So that second half, I had a lot of energy. My legs was rested. I felt good about it. And the team just did so well while I wasn't able to be out there because of foul trouble. And I just want to do whatever I could. And if that meant points, if that meant defense, whatever it meant, like it was whatever it had to take. So I was excited.
Give me an idea what the perspective is like from a current player in college basketball, in the Big Ten, when you see someone like Caitlin Clark, who you'll be playing on Sunday, break an all-time scoring record. What is it like from your vantage point?
I mean, it's an amazing opportunity. I feel like when one person wins, we all win, just as women in sports. And she's done so much for just the community and just for women's basketball. And I'm just excited to just be a part of this and be able to witness something like this. And this is like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and I have all respect for her and just can't wait to compete against her on Sunday.
What's your philosophy on talking to an opponent? Will you go up and say hi to her before the game?
I don't really have a philosophy. I mean, every game is different. Sometimes I talk to opponents if I know them. Sometimes I don't. I mean, I have no, like, prior thing going into it. Just whatever the flow of the game.
Yeah. One of the cool things about what we've been witnessing is all these sold-out arenas now for women's basketball games, which is really cool. And you guys are going to have it. There's not going to be an empty seat in Iowa City when you take them on Sunday. Do you as a team talk about how a game feels different when there's 15,000 people screaming that you got to deal with?
Yeah. I mean, when you go on the road, it's literally everyone against you. And I feel like we thrive in those kind of situations. Even last year in Indiana, we went them to the wire, and they had a sold-out crowd as well. So, like, where we at as a team right now and the chemistry that we have, like, we're going to have to stick together probably the most we have this whole season because those fans, I've heard how Iowa could get, have not been there yet. So I'm excited to see that crowd and those fans.
It'll be a cool experience. You'll enjoy it. It's always fun to play in front of a sold-out stadium. Genesis, congrats on the recent turn that your team has taken. Best of luck the rest of the season.
Thank you so much.
They're a game and a half out of first place. They actually control their destiny the rest of the regular season. And this is what Terrence Shannon has done the last 3 games he's played. 28 points, 31 points, 27 points.
What makes him so difficult is last game he shot, I think, 14 for 16 from the free throw line. Another game he got there 13 times. So just the pressure he puts on defenses, especially in the open court, he's so tough to deal with. And you got Marcus Damask, who I feel like is more of that point guard, a playmaker in the half court. Those two guys are existing really well together. Now, this game at the rec center, you know that place is going to be packed, and just feels like these games, like the court's almost shrunk. Penn State's going to pick up the pressure. And if they can disrupt Illinois' offense, force turnovers, they lead the Big Ten in steals, and also if they can knock down some shots. Zach Hicks has been playing really well, 15 points over the last 15 games. He's hit 5 games, sorry. He's hit 16 threes in those 5 games. If they're shooting it well and forcing Illinois into turnovers, this could be a tough game for the Illini. Now Penn State is going to have to compete with the Illini on the glass and in the paint.
Right. Yeah. Maybe the new venue will create a little spark because Penn State's. Yeah, it should be fun.
Yeah.
But also they need a little spark. They've lost 3 straight games. Nebraska and Indiana is the next one. Nebraska really needs a road win because the selection committee is noticing that. That's a glaring stat that they do consider.
The Huskers 16-1 at home, 1-7 on the road. That one win was at Kansas State, a good ball club. Now these teams played earlier. Nebraska won 86-70. Tominaga had 28 points. I don't think it's going to be as easy. But Indiana is going to have to do a much better job. They got to play with some pride. You're at home. You got to play through your big men. Defensively, they let a guy like Ryan Langborg just get loose, get really hot against them in their last game. Now, Tominaga, C.J. Wilcher, similar types of players. Indiana's got to bring it on the defensive end, close out to the three-point shooters, and we'll see if Nebraska can have some of that magic on the road.
Yeah, that Tominaga performance when these two met earlier this year, especially in the second half, was impressive. He had 28 points.
Lights out.
18 of them came in the last 20 minutes. That'll do it for us. Thanks so much for watching this edition of Big Ten Today. For Big Daddy Beach, I'm Mike Hall. We'll see you later on this evening, a doubleheader on our